Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. You dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class today. Nathan is engineering the broadcast in Minnesota at GCN. I'm Vincent Finelli. If you'd like to listen to USA Prepares, we have a telephone listen line, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. Got a full schedule today for the class. Welcome, Rick.
Good morning.
Good morning, Rick.
But good morning. I'm curious about this thing. Sandy called. Are you okay? You're good, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, here's the thing. Early in the morning, I'm running around doing a whole bunch of things. We have a farm, and I am really, really busy. And every once in a while, I will ask Mrs. Finelli if she could do some things for me. And so this morning, as I was racing around, I asked her if she would call Dr. Richard Allen Miller and just, as we normally chat before the broadcast, just to say hi, make sure we're still good. Everything, in our schedule is lining up fine. I asked her if she could do that for me today. So that's what that was about. Mm-hmm.
It's okay. Yeah, you're the chicken with the head cut off.
Yeah. That's exactly right. So, Rick, last week we were a week closer to being friends. This week we're even a week closer than that.
Oh man. I've got some special pink salt for you to use. Oh man.
Yeah. Is it marked wound salt?
Yeah. No. It's sea salt. Yeah. You can tell by the smell. Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things I want to talk to you today about salt. But before that, I thought we would discuss what you mentioned to me on the phone that you're concerned about things happening that are.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Now I know what context is. Okay.
Specific, right. Yeah, and some specific advice and counsel for these things. We used to have chemtrails across the sky, and then Donald Trump was selected.
I want to talk to you about that for one moment. I have something to say. I bought one of these cheap microscopes that you can put onto your computer and look at your surface of your hand. Joey sent me one email 2 days ago, I think it was, regarding someone he follows that used that and was looking at his hand. So I looked at my hand, and there it is, just like everywhere. You will notice nanoparticles on your hand that are little tiny dots of steel or something metal. It's nanoparticle, and you can see them on your skin. On the and the inside of your hand is usually the cleanest because you're constantly washing, wiping, rubbing, and so it has nanofibers. They are C60 molecules, fullerenes that are growing, and then you will see at a higher magnification, much higher, little dots of steel. They're not steel. I don't know what metal they are yet. I haven't run a mass spectrometer. That's next. We are being inundated with crap in the air that is not natural. And it is now showing on everybody's body with little things growing We're not talking about molds and funguses now. We're talking about something smaller. And I don't know what it is, but it's not natural. It is not natural. I remember looking at my hands in the 50s and the 60s when I was a little tiny boy and was discovering amoeba. And at 600 magnification, you can see the little dots of steel and the nanofibers larger. I don't know what's going on, but this is not the world I was originally born in. And it is not being ruled by the same space entities that were. Something died. And some of you out there know exactly what I'm saying without me articulating. And I don't understand what part or role we play in all of this. I don't. But we have no control of this. And this crap that's in the air is for a purpose almost as if we are being terraformed. And I'm concerned. And that's me saying it.
Oh. Rick, so you're talking about looking at your skin under a microscope. And you mentioned 600x magnification. What is the minimum magnification that someone would need to find
200. 200 is what most microscopes start at. They start at 200, go up to 600 magnification. Very rarely will you get up to 2,000 until you start using an electron microscope or other kinds of imaging technologies. There's, it varies. Most normal microscopes go to between 2 and 5 or 600x. This is enough to notice inconsistencies. We're talking about a universe that you can't see with your normal eye, and that is changing massively. Now, if that's changing massively, what is it doing to the smaller entities? Molds, yeasts, and things of that nature. Your gut, your outside of space-time part of your brain. And I don't know. These are areas of study that I have some nominal background in, but I don't know. I need further research. I need more definitions, some pickup of what has been discovered and what is believed, models, that kind of thing. And then maybe I can start forming an opinion. But right now, I'm just working with my gut. Speaking of which, it's changing. I have had, in just this last week, I had an excellent, by the way, workshop at Taprock. It was excellent. I met some people that came all the way from Chicago. I hope he's listening. He was one of the finest. I was very fortunate. It was a good workshop. But some things came out of that I have no idea what they mean. And it's like being blindsided. You have, you're moving forward, you have data, everything is all going in this direction, and all of a sudden, without warning, it is a complete opposite of what you thought. How does that work? Especially at my age and my area and level of sensitivity. I'm not the smartest man in the world, and I'm not the most aware person, sensitive-wise, but I'm, evolving to a place where I'm beginning to be respected by those of seeing things that other people don't, that kind of thing, and I am being blindsided. What? Huh? Completely in disbelief. Shock is a word I might use. And I don't know what it means. And it's inconsistent with any behavior that I've ever experienced in my 74 years. And it's all recent. And the next thing that moves in is the concepts of gang stalking and the paranoia that goes with it, which is absurd. That's crazy, to think like that. And yet, at some point, you're left with no other explanation, because it's inconsistent to anything you've ever known before. And the same thing is true right now with a microscope. There are things going on in our universe that do not make any sense in terms of anything I've ever been taught or experienced. And but behavior of people. Just last week, I'm merging over into another lane, and there's plenty of room behind me, and yet this individual accelerated with intent and hit me. Who's at fault? Well, it was witnessed, and so the police officer, when he gave me the ticket, apologized because he said we have a policy of trying to benefit of the doubt with vets, and there were witnesses, and they're all saying this, but because you were merging into his lane, even though he hit you in the rear, not the side, I was the one that got the ticket. My insurance company is dissing it. However, it ruined my dad's truck. I'm 74 years old. Why did that man do that? I don't know. And that's asymptomatic of the inconsistencies in everything I'm saying, including behavior. Your crappy 4 years, 3 months, and 2 days friendship thing coming up. No, I'm just kidding. It's crazy. It's crazy, Vincent, and I don't have an explanation, and I don't have anybody to talk to about it because it might be my closest friend. It isn't in this case, but it was like that last year, and it was my closest friend. You said. What's that?
I'd like to comment on what you said.
Well,
so I drive an old pickup truck, 2004 Chevrolet, and it's rusty. And that's one of the things I wanted to talk about with you during this broadcast. I have a lot of things on today's list. So, class, we're not going to be taking any calls today. Just want to let you know, no calls today. So, I have this 2004 Chevy pickup truck, and the rocker panels are rusting off, and the flakes of rust are not little. They are the size, when pieces of this truck fall off, they are the size of a playing card, like a deck of cards card. That's how big they are. They're just falling off. And the truck is probably worth, I don't know, $1,000 to $2,000, period. And I want to talk about that in perspective to what you said and insurance when we come back. And here's my take on it. And I explained this to our family yesterday. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and yeah.
It's not working.
Oh, jeez. Yep. Okay. Nathan.
Grace just came up and told me that it's not working.
Yeah.
No.
Yep. Well, Nathan just let me know that they are working on it feverishly. They've got their top staff working on it right now. So thank you very much, GCN, for working on the telephone listen line. Okay. So we're talking about people cutting you off, irrational behavior, aggressive behavior, and I'm seeing the same thing here too. And I've been saying it for, actually a couple of years now that, when I go to Springfield, do I always have to get cut off? Does everybody have to cut me off? Well, so I was talking with our family yesterday, and we have need for a heavier truck. My truck is just a half-ton truck, a Silverado 1500 work truck, just a plain Jane crank-up windows work truck with parts falling off as the rust is eating the body. Well, I said, yeah, I understand we need a 3/4 ton truck. I get that, to pull a gooseneck. I got that. But I've got this old truck, and it just suits me fine. It, goes uphill, goes downhill, and, works fine. Well, here's the thing. Here's what I said to my family. I said, if we buy a truck, a truck that's 10 years old, for example, it'll cost about $6,000. And that I can understand. But the part I have trouble with is the tax that I'd have to pay. I'd have to pay sales tax on a used truck. Someone else paid tax on it the first time, and they would charge me, the government corporation would charge me about 6% sales tax on that. So if it's a $6,000 truck, $360 in sales tax. And that just bothers me. And then I'd have to pay a registration and license plate fee. Let's say another $100. So by the time I'm done, $460, almost $500 for a $6,000 truck, which is about 10%. It kills me, just the thought of it. So I continued the discussion with my family yesterday outside. We were talking about it in the field. And I said, look, here's my thoughts on insurance today. So if we had a newer truck, we'd have a higher insurance premium on it. Charge. The insurance company would charge us more for a newer truck than my old clunker. And I have a problem with that because I don't, if I had to recognize my insurance agent in a lineup, I don't think I could do it. As a matter of fact, if he called, I don't think I could recognize his voice because whenever I do call and talk to him, if I call him on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, I forget that that's his golf day, those 5 days. I think he's out playing golf, so he's never around, so I can't talk to him. So I hate paying for insurance. I really do. Well, my insurance costs would be higher. And then I'm thinking, if I had a new truck, would I have comprehensive and collision in addition to liability? And my answer today is no. No, and I'll tell you why. I would just have a high liability limit, really high. And the reason for that is if someone crashes into me, they're going to have to pay for it. If I damage my own truck, I'll pay for it rather than pay for insurance. I'll just fix it. Now, let's say I can't fix it. Let's say it gets totaled. A deer jumps out in front of me, and there's so much damage because these new vehicles are designed to be destroyed on an impact, and the cost to fix them is so great compared to what their used value is, that it would, let's say it's totaled. Okay, so what do I do if my truck is totaled, and it's a $6,000 truck? Well, I part it out. I sell the tires, the wheels, the seats, the engine components, the transmission, the axle, the springs, on and on and on and on, the bed, and I get my $6,000 back. So that's my new thinking about how to live with insurance with a vehicle today, Rick. So I just wanted to share that. Do you have any comments on that?
Well, yeah, that's the way I live. This man hit me with intent. Why?
Okay, I feel the same way. And I don't even want to go out anymore.
What basically is happening is there's a right turn that you're supposed to go under a tunnel to go into town. You have 2 lanes on the Redwood Highway, and usually slow trucks, and there's just a bunch of them, usually big old freight trucks, are in the outside lane. And then you have the automobiles that merge over into the outside lane as the tunnel comes up.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, and we're going to talk about rust. And this is a plague. This is a plague that has been unleashed on we, the villagers, across the United States, where it's cold and they spray these rust-producing chemicals on the roads. So I was working on a Mercedes ML 430. 2000 model. And this particular Mercedes needed some control arm work. They need to be replaced. Why? Because there are some boots that protect we'll call them ball joints, okay? You've all heard of ball joints on cars. Well, there are these parts that allow the wheels to articulate left and right. You can turn left and right. And so there needs to be a ball and socket type of a joint on the front end of most vehicles. Well, they have these rubber boots, and inside the rubber boots there's grease that lubricates the ball joints. And when road salt gets in there, it tears up the ball and socket, and they rust quickly, and then they start to wobble, and then the steering is affected, and you can't steer your car adequately, and safety is compromised. And so there's a lot of reasons why you want to make sure that your ball joints are replaced when necessary. Well, in order to replace the ball joints in the front and back of this particular Mercedes, it has four-wheel independent suspension. There are these iron steel pieces of metal that were rusted in place, bolts that hold the alignment system in place, rusted to the point where we could not, no matter what we did, we could not loosen these adjustment bolts. And what I'm talking about is, the car's up on a lift, so it's not like we can't get to it. And we have all the typical penetrating oils. We have WD-40. That's not a penetrating oil, but it's a water displacement liquid. We have spray lubricants. We have lubricants with Teflon in them. We have liquid wrench. And we have acetone and automatic transmission fluid mixed together. So we have lots of these lubricants, and we'd heat it up. We'd heat these bolts up, and we'd spray the lubricant. And we did this for days. And we have breaker bars that are 24 inches long, half-inch drive. Nope, not strong enough. We have an impact gun that will deliver over 500 foot-pounds of bam, 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 bam. Nope, not good enough. No matter what we did, we couldn't loosen these bolts. And so I called the alignment company because the next thing after we replaced the suspension parts of this particular vehicle, we wanted to have it aligned. And it gets a four-wheel alignment because it has four-wheel independent suspension. So I called the company up and I said, we've replaced all the parts, but one control arm in the rear, we can't get the bolt off, no matter what. We've tried for days and we've sprayed it, and so we've sprayed all these parts for you. And would you do the alignment for us and replace this one part? We do our own work, but would you mind? He said, no problem, no problem. So I was on the radio. And Mrs. Finelli and our son put the Mercedes truck on a trailer and pulled it over to the alignment place. It's like a 50-mile round trip. And so I get progress reports. Well, it's on the lift. And they've got one guy working on it. Two guys working on it. They've got two guys and the shop foreman working on it. It's been an hour and a half. The appointment was at 9:30. They weren't done with the front end and rear end alignment on this vehicle till 3:30. It's a 45-minute job. What I'm saying is this is just the tip of the iceberg. Now, they charge us extra. Nowhere near enough to cover the extra cost. It's a $75 job. They charged us $150. They said, would it be okay if we charged you another $75? Because Jesus was rough, and it took everybody in the shop to get these bolts loose. And my son said they had a torch under there, and the truck was glowing red from underneath the truck because they had to heat up all these bolts to loosen them, and they had penetrating oil and loosen them. And what a job. Now, why is this? Because of the road salt. Well, we've had road salt for years. Okay? Well, that's really not the entire problem. The rest of the problem is the beet juice mixed with the road salt. And I'd like to hear Rick's comments about this. So I wanted to tell you the story. And this is just part of a story. Okay? There are other parts of the story. There is no such thing as a 2000 model truck in Missouri that isn't rusted. And when I say rusted, I mean rocker panels rusted through, bumpers rusted through. I'm talking about you drive along the road and the tire tread picks up water, picks up the beet juice mixed with the salt. The tires fling that up. It rusts out the wheel wells. It rusts out when it hits the bumper. It stays on the bumper and rusts through the thickest part of the vehicle except for the engine block. That's the only part that's thicker than the bumper. And it will literally rust completely through the bumpers. And these things are, I'm talking about trucks with chrome-plated bumpers. So I think the reason that you have plastic bumpers on your vehicles today class is for two reasons. One, it's cheap. Two, they don't rust. Because if you got a chance to see what's underneath these vehicles, as I have, why? Because I put them up in the air. I put them up on a lift. I look at them. I can't believe the poor condition, the unsafe condition of so many vehicles. Actually, how many? All of them. All the vehicles I've seen here at the farm when people come in, unsafe. Unsafe because of rust. Rust. Rust on brake lines. Rust on front suspension. Rust on the frame, rust on... You can go to the internet and you can look up rust and leaf springs, and you will see pictures of the mounts that mount the leaf springs on trucks to the frame that have rusted through, and all of a sudden, when it rusts through, the box, the bed of the truck, the bed box, will fall down, and the spring will go through the bed box. That's how bad it is. And I think this is a plague that has been unleashed on us because the government corporations are putting beet juice in the salt that they apply to the road to keep the roads from freezing. It's rusting bridges. It's rusting everything that's metal, that's ferrous. Rick, you probably haven't seen that in your neck of the woods because it doesn't get that cold, right?
Well, no, and I haven't. But beet juice is sugar. That's the primary chemistry. So why are they using beet juice?
Well, I think it's for a couple of reasons. Now, I'm hypothesizing. I think, we use beets to make sugar for...
Well, that's what it is. It's primarily bricks of sugar, like corn.
Right. Right. And what they do is they've got this stuff left over after they've made the sugar. Like, what do we do with it? It's like fluoride. What do we do? Let's have a contest. So, we don't know what to do with this stuff. So let's have a contest. Oh, we can sell it. Who would be dumb enough to buy it? Well, a municipality would be dumb enough to buy this stuff. So what they do is the sugar makes this, it's like molasses. It's sticky. So they mix it with the road salt, and they can use less road salt to accomplish the same thing when they use beet juice, because the beet juice will stick to the road. It also sticks to the cars. So you're driving along and you think, wow, got salt on my car. Let me, as soon as I get it home, I'm going to wash it off. I'll get that hose and I'll wash off the salt underneath. Well, you can't get it off. It's sticky. So now you've got the road salt, and it stays in those little tiny microscopic crevices in your car, and it makes them bigger. And then more salt can get in there. And once it starts, you can't stop it. And so we've talked to auto body mechanics, and we've said, hey, we got some rust on our trucks. Can you fix it? Yeah, we can fix it. But, in a few weeks, it'll be back. A few weeks. It's a cancer.
Yeah,
you can't stop it. You can't stop it. And it's every truck.
Yeah, we see this on the coastline a lot because of the salt water, but I've never, yes, rust is a problem. This was interesting, but how is that? What do you think?
Well, let's talk about lies.
Okay, go ahead.
Let's talk about lies. Okay. So here is from MoDOT, as in Missouri Department of Transportation. Sugar beets. This is headlines, okay? Sugar beets. We got the beat. Now this whole thing. I hire morons. I mean, people who couldn't get jobs they hire to work in the government corporation. So it says sugar beets in big, large letters. We got the beet. The unassuming sugar beet makes a big difference when it comes to battling winter weather. MoDOT, as in Missouri Department of Transportation, uses beet juice when mixed with salt brine, help the salt brine work at lower temperatures to treat icy or snow-packed surfaces. Did you know the sugar beet is, of course, used to make table sugar as well as feed for cattle? The product we use is a byproduct of the process that makes sugar for our tables.
Does this eliminate black ice? Is that one of the primaries? Is the black ice you're talking about?
I think I don't know if it's the primary, but it probably does that. And they talk about beet juice costs are relative to calcium, which is $1.70 to $1.85 a gallon. It says we use a mixture of 80% salt brine and 20% beet juice in most areas. And they say that this is really neat because they don't have to use as much salt because it sticks to the road better. They don't have to use as much salt.
But you have more cost and repair bills because of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we take now for us, we were very fortunate. We were only charged $75 more for an alignment because they couldn't loosen the bolts. But this is going to happen to everybody. This isn't just the Finelli family. This is going to be universal for those who are victims of road salt combined with beet juice. In addition to the rusting of the vehicles. And I'll tell you what I think about this. I'd love to hear your comments when we come. Here's one of the points that we're trying to make about this road salt and this plague that has been unleashed on us. So what does it affect? Well, it affects the steering components of your car and truck, the suspension. If you have a unibody, it affects that. If you have it affects the wheels. We are now seeing that wheels are stuck on the hubs and brake drums. We're seeing that wheels are stuck. So when you have, let's say, a flat tire, and you say, let me get that tire iron out and let me unloosen these lug nuts, jack it up and unloosen the lug. You can't get the lug nuts off because the lug nuts that hold the wheels on, or the lug bolts, whichever you may have, are frozen in place or rusted in place. Bearings are failing faster. Drive shafts are failing faster. Universal joints get salt in them, and it tears up the bearing surface. Nuts, bolts, brake lines, body parts, hinges. Now, think about this. So you have a flat tire, and you go, it's okay. I've got a spare. I checked it last week. It's got air in it. I'm just going to jack up the car, put the lug wrench on it, and take the wheel off. And you can't get the bolts loose. Think about that. So what we do here at the farm is when we work on nuts and bolts and fasteners, we apply grease to them because we know that it will make it easier the next time when we go to take them off. But there's a risk in doing that. And I want you to be careful, class, if you decide to do this. But I want you to do your own research. Don't blame me if your wheel falls off. We are really careful, but we lubricate the wheel studs and the wheel bolts with copper coat. Copper coat. You can buy it in an 8-ounce container, 4-ounce container, about $10, $15. And it's copper and oil mixed together. And it prevents these dissimilar metals from rusting together. Sometimes we use grease for fasteners so that we can get them apart. But that's what we do. But imagine, we've had lady after lady show up here at the farm complaining that the last guys that worked on their cars tightened the wheel bolts so tight they can't get them off. So what we've been doing is we've been saying 24-inch breaker bar. Half-inch drive. You can get it at the Chinese factory tool outlet, Harbor Freight, for about $15. You get that, you get the right socket, and then you can have the extra leverage. But, you know, if you have a spare tire, because many new cars don't even come with spare tires. I mean, whoever thought of that? I guess that would be an accountant, for the auto manufacturers. But I just wanted to share that, Rick. And here's my thought, and I'd love to hear about your answer. So how do I stop this? Well, what I've decided to do is experiment. I want to get those toilet wax rings. So if you're going to set a toilet, there are these soft, pliable, semi-pliable wax rings that you can buy for, well, they used to be $1. They're probably $3 now. And I want to, at low temperature, heat that, mix with a little bit of diesel fuel, and I want to spray that everywhere underneath the vehicle where I want to prevent rust. What are your thoughts about that? How do How do we prevent the rust? That's after I wash it.
DeLorean made everything out of stainless steel. You remember when they wanted to make the best thing that they could that didn't wear out?
Yep.
Those days are over, of course, because it's Mopar and the idea of replacing things. It's a way of taxing without representation.
Well, and that's
Tread on me.
Rick. That's a very good point, because so let's say you have a vehicle and you go, you know what? I'm not going to put up with this government corporation stuff. I'm not going to have some tracking computers in my car, vehicle-to-vehicle communications. I'm not going to do it. Well, the government corporation just wait you out. They put road salt on, you drive on the roads, your vehicle rusts, then you have to get a new one because the body that you used to have on your vehicle, the doors have fallen off because the hinge mounting points have rusted through. So now you can't hold your doors on, let alone your bumper and your truck bed and your rocker panels and your quarter panels. They've got us. They've got us by the throat. So the only thing to do is have a winter vehicle separate from your other vehicle. We'll be right back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us. RichardAllenMiller.com. Richard, A-L-A-N, Miller.com. So I looked up vandalism. And vandalism is action involving deliberate destruction or damage to public or private property. And vandalism is tax deductible. So I'm putting the IRS on notice right now. I am going to deduct the damage that I estimate that we have had here at the farm, our vehicles, our equipment, due to the vandalism by the municipalities, because they don't put signs up that say, caution, if you drive on this road, which we have just salted with beet juice, you will experience damage to your vehicle. I've never seen those signs. Okay, so they have done this to me, to others, and I will deduct it off my taxes as vandalism. So, Rick, my thought is to take those toilet wax rings. When you seat a toilet, they used to be 99 cents or something like that, about $1, maybe $2 or $3 today. You know what I'm talking about. So I'm thinking that I'd like to mix it with diesel fuel and heat it very carefully outside in case, I don't want to heat this on the stove because that's really dangerous. We could have a massive fire and burn down a building. But I'm thinking maybe in the hot sun with a parabolic reflector, something like that, or turpentine and these wax rings, or mineral spirits. What are your thoughts?
Oh, man.
And then spray it. And then spray it on the bottom of the car.
Start weaponizing everything. I'm trying not to get upset about everything around me. And isn't it creepy the way everything is changing now? The rules of engagement and what you can and can't do. I don't know what to say about all of this. So
well, there is a risk. There is a risk in doing this, because if you have a catalytic converter, that runs at 1,500 degrees, you might set your car on fire. If you spray the wrong area. So you really have to know what you're doing. And I suggest that, class, if you're thinking about doing what I'm thinking about
I always wanted to have a James Bond-like car that I could deploy things behind me that would mess up the driving of a person behind me. I always wanted something like that, but I'm not going to do that. I don't even want to be that way. Hold on just a second. Hold on just a second. So I had a friend when I was growing up, and this was in the late 60s. And he and I guess, used to get in situations involving the other team. And he had it with people who were tailgating him. And he had a full-size Chevrolet. And what he did, had a standard transmission. And what he did with this, and this is like a 1960s vintage Chevrolet, he put on a straight exhaust system out the back, single exhaust.
and it had a carburetor and a standard transmission. And what he did was he drilled out a part of the exhaust pipe, and he inserted a spark plug in the exhaust system, welded it in place, and had a separate ignition coil for the spark plug in the exhaust. So when someone rode his tail, he would, this was before steering wheel locks, so when someone would ride his tail, he would shut off the ignition, let the fuel air vapor enter the exhaust system, and then he would engage the spark plug. He'd hit the little momentary contact switch, send a spark into the exhaust system, and flames would come out the exhaust. Huge flames. And that solved his problem. So, James Bond, maybe.
Yeah, I don't think Royal Mounted Police would find that amusing.
Well, it was really hard on the mufflers. It was very hard on the mufflers. You know, those are the days you had to have a lifetime warranty muffler because you'd burst it at the seams, because that's where the highest concentration of the gas air vapor would be.
Kid wants to do with his little car, make it sound like it's got a big engine by ruining the muffler. But you know, I have more subtle ways of doing things like that, like you know, muriatic acid and things of that nature. You know, just low levels of hydrochloric acid or something. You can do all kinds of things when you're bricklaying.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. What did you want to really talk about today?
I want to talk about what is happening to the planet. For example,
that's
Hurricane Michael. Well,
like I
is causing all kinds of
when we
problems.
first started, there is the possibility that right before our eyes, we're being terraformed. When you take a look at what you don't see with your normal eyes, but you have a microscope. I've been doing that as a child, so I've noticed that there's a difference in what I'm seeing now. Where did it come from? Well, there it is. You can see it up there in the sky. We call them chemtrails. Oh, wait, that's just a contrail. Excuse me. You know, there's something else going on here, and we, as voters and having some rights, do not have full disclosure. Why? Why do we not have full disclosure? Why are they not actually telling us what's going on? Why is it, you know, I don't mean to blast Trump per se, because I think we're fortunate to have him over what our option would have been otherwise, but that neither is actually good. You know, he's sitting there saying he doesn't understand global warming. Okay, I don't either, but there's no question that there's something happening. And there's no question it's going back into normal. And there's no question that something else is going on. And what exactly is chemtrails? They've started, it's a common occurrence now. Who's funding that? Why, did you realize it costs $10,000 an hour to run an aircraft of that magnitude across the sky? Is $10,000 an hour in fuel. And the propellant and all the rest of it that's in there, who's paying for that? And what exactly is that primary purpose? Is it as most would say, a ICBM nuclear shield? No. Is it to control the weather? No. Well, what exactly is it? Why is it I don't see any chemtrails in my region? For the last 3 days, we've had beautiful, beautiful weather, sky, not a cloud in the sky, or we'll have rain with clouds and stormy, but no chemtrails. And then, there they are. Why? And we have aircraft going across the sky every day. How come some days there they are, and some days there they are not? What's that about? And why do people like me that try to find out what it is can't? I have questions.
Well, I've got a question for you. So, all right. So, as you described this, the chemtrails, we see them crisscrossing the skies. Fewer when now that Donald Trump is in at the CEO seat compared to Barry Soetoro. But so the pilot, okay, they say to the pilot, okay, get ready to fly. He goes, okay, where are we going? You can't say, but get ready to fly. So he goes, all right, I just want to look at the plane and make sure that I'm satisfied that the plane is intact and ready, airworthy. So he looks around the outside, looks at the tires, looks at the fuselage, looks at the engines, listens to the sound of the engines. He goes, okay. So he climbs up. Co-pilot's with him. Okay, where are we going? Well, just take off. Okay, well, where are we going? Well, we're just going to do we're going to fly and then we're going to turn around and come home. Actually, we're going to crisscross the sky, And so he says, well, who's the passengers? Who are they? Well, we don't have any passengers. So why are we flying? Well, none of your business. Well, let me go look in the plane, see what's in there. Well, and all he sees is these tanks, 50 tanks lined up on each side of the plane. And he says, well, so what are those tanks for? Can't tell you. I mean, is that the way it really goes? I hardly think so. I think that the pilot knows exactly what he's doing. He's on a mission. He is part of the problem. The co-pilot is right there with him, and the guy running the nozzles spraying at the designated locations is part of the problem too. So is the guy who fills up the tanks. So are the people who built the tanks. So are the people who installed the tanks. So are the people who calibrate the spray nozzles. All of those guys, including the air traffic controllers who see all this, they're all complicit.
How do we get a whistleblower to come out and tell us what they know? How do we? It hasn't.
The only thing, and I've been saying this for years. So the only way that we can stop this is, let's assume most of these pilots are men. Okay, let's just make that assumption, which is probably true. So, and many of them are married, and many of them have girlfriends. So the girlfriend says, honey, listen, I don't understand. So you're out there and you're flying, and someday we're going to have a family and we're going to have children, and I don't want a three-eyed child. I don't want a defective child. So as long as you're out there flying and spraying these chemicals and flying in the trails of these other planes that are doing the same thing that you are, honey, you're going to sleep on the couch. That's it. You're sleeping on the couch because I don't want to have any mistakes. I don't want any three-eyed children. I don't want a mongoloid. I don't want someone who is defective. I want to have a perfect child like most people want to have. That's how we stop it. The women have to sit down and cross their legs. Saw NASA photos of an alien base on the far side of the moon. He just died. He was hit and killed by a tractor trailer. Carl Wolf died. Rick, before we move on, let's continue talking about these storms. So there's a tremendous amount of damage caused by Hurricane Michael in Florida. And so what we know is that about 30 or more have been killed. Between 720 people and 1,000 can't be found. The winds hit 155 miles an hour, and the rescue efforts are hampered because of the lack of electricity and phone service. So what do? Well, to me, it's simple. Get out of the way. Get out of the way. Because now I'm reading that hurricanes are moving eastward. So where they were more in the central part of the country, they're starting to move more eastward. Rick, what do you recommend as a survivalist, as a preparedness-minded person, as a physicist? What do you recommend people do in order to protect themselves from this?
I have on Facebook, I have a second site called Sustainable Lifeboats. It's trademarked. And I posted yesterday about the problem with hailstorms and what is now becoming a norm, where large hail is killing your animals. And I'm going to say that that has now become a reality. That means that part of your farm now must provide a shield for the possibility of hailstorms and killing animals. It's unbelievable. The weather is changing. The kinds of weather that we are experiencing is changing. And before even you're at risk, your animals are. And you need to begin to think about how you're going to protect your cows out in your pasture if a hailstorm came through that started dropping chunks the size of a baseball. And that is actually a reality now. And there are just recently people killed, animals killed, massive quantities of sheep. It isn't so much the cows, but it'll be the chickens and the smaller animals that don't have a place to hide, to shield themselves from that. And that is like now part of a sustainable lifeboat situation. Hail has become a reality, a large hailstorm. And when it happens, it can come on very quickly. We had hail during a bright sunny day once here. I've never seen anything like it. It came down hard, and then it was normal again. How does that work? I mean, the hail, that's item one. Then we have wind. And the winds are different now. The categories of hurricanes start from a category 2, category 3, and then all of a sudden, we have a cat 4 coming in. And 160 mile an hour winds. I have been in wind like that at one time, and literally was picked up off my feet. I'm strong, and I couldn't stand in that kind of weather. You're going to have to realize that our weather is, you're going to need some kind of a storm shelter or a shield for your animals and yourself. It's going to happen. Then we move to ash. Ash is coming off of Mount St. Helens right now, today, and as if the mountain has blown again. It didn't. It had a bunch of ash from when it blew back in the 80s. And here we are, the end of days, where now we're getting the ash in the air. And if that happens, what happens to your crops and your food supply? Now, what I have done, I've been blessed. I've met someone from Riverponics who gave me a vertical aquaculture system to experiment with and talk about as I go into a learning curve, how to use it. It's going to take me several years to learn how to use this. The primary crop most people would use is to grow hemp or marijuana. I'm not going to do that. I'm working on salad greens during the winter.
Okay. We're going into a break, and I want to share with you a really quick story about something that happened to one of our boys. Yep. I was looking at my car. He borrowed my car, and I said, "Yo, what happened to my car?" I'll tell you the rest of the story when we come back. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, Richard, ALANMiller.com. If you'd like to peruse the website and buy his books, there you go. You've got the site, richardalanmiller.com. So, Rick, I was looking at my car by the garage, and I said, yo, where's the paint? My hood used to have paint on it. Where is the paint? My son said, well, I borrowed your car, and there was a hailstorm, Dad. And it was so bad, he was out of state, traveling, and he pulled into Dairy Queen, and he ran into Dairy Queen because the hail was so bad, and it was everybody go in the kitchen, get away from the windows. So what you're saying is absolutely right, and I wanted to share that with you. So
there's other things that are going to happen. The sun is going to get blocked at some point for at least 1 or 2 seasons, which means there will not be crops because of the sunlight being blocked from the sun. That means you're going to need a backup system to produce some of the food that you would normally otherwise go to the store and buy that is no longer available because nobody can grow it on Earth for that brief moment. That's going to happen. And you must learn how to grow some of your food indoors under shelter with lights. Now, I'm also dealing with a group up in Kelowna that are making special LEDs that are inexpensive and cheap to run, that are bandwidth specific for given crops. And my focus is going to be on Mediterranean diet during this period, where there's too much meat being eaten on Earth, and that's another problem. We're going to have to rethink the foods we eat and why we eat them because of land use and what is no longer going to be available. With the ocean currents rebooting, the Hopi are now saying you're going to need at least 8 feet between you and the surface of the Earth to protect yourself from the change of a day after tomorrow. And that's Hopi. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen, and I don't know when it's going to happen, but I was in a forest-fired summer this year where we had no summer. And my tomato plants did not put out. I actually saw the relationship between forest fires and crops being failed here on the West Coast. And I can tell you that that's next. And so my strongest recommendation is that you have a small indoor garden less than 60 feet from your kitchen. You can do it outside. You can do it on a under shelter, that kind of thing, next to the house. Permaculture says that you won't use that food if your garden is more than 60 steps from the garden, from the kitchen. That's a rule of thumb. I don't know what else to tell you except water. Water, right now, our water treatment plant is going to go through rebuild and unexpected costs. It's they was in the paper last night, and they're saying this means that the water prices are going up. If you're in a city and you pay a water tax, you can count on that increasing, and to a point where there may not be the available water you're seeking for hygiene. Now, I don't know where this is all going, but it just makes sense that you need a little bit of sovereignty. That amount, like producing 40% of the food you eat, is a level of empowerment that will allow you to survive. And none of you are doing that now. Even I'm not doing that yet. And we all need to do that now.
Okay, let's get specific, Rick. You mentioned bandwidths. So I'm thinking about the different kinds of lettuce. So we have green lettuce.
Blue light. Yeah, that's a blue bandwidth.
All right, so we have green lettuce and we have red lettuce, for example.
They all require blue bandwidth. That's where it's a cooler light. It's near the long ultraviolet. And the short ultraviolet and blue are where your lettuces are best done. We use sodium lamps. That's old-fashioned. LEDs are much cheaper and are cooler, which means they're way more efficient.
Okay, so you're saying if I were just to use the standard LED that produces a white type of a light, I would want a higher degree Kelvin, more like 5,000 degree Kelvin, 6,000 degree Kelvin, 6,500 degree Kelvin, right? If I want to be able to see.
Kelvin is a temperature measurement, and you can work with Fahrenheit. That's just a simple conversion. Yes, but for me, I'm going to be experimenting with light-emitting computers, not LEDs, but light-emitting computers. This is a new direction in LED technology, and it's perfect for plants indoors, underground. Heat is going to be part of it because some plants prefer the water for best absorption to be at different bandwidths of temperature. I'm experimenting on this so I can offer online advice for mass people that would like to take workshops and or classes and courses from me. I'm concerned that nobody is studying this stuff or even getting started yet. And I would strongly recommend that everyone listening today begin a small indoor experimental flower pot, learning how to grow next to your kitchen right then, right now. And it doesn't have to be a big system. And the vertical part means you can go up 8 feet with 4 different tiers, with your tomatoes falling down on the sides. And the light.
Here's the question I have for you. So we have a room in our house, a laundry room right off the kitchen.
Perfect.
And I can, there's a window there, and the window faces, it's sunny. And so we can start some plants there, and I can hang an LED array over the light, over the plants, as they germinate. Okay, I've got that. Now, have you figured out the exact frequencies for which plants yet, or is that to be determined?
Oh yeah, no, that's published information now. Yes, and broccoli is different than cauliflower. Like if you're growing sweet
that's where
potatoes.
I was going. Right. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'd like to start with tomatoes, believe it or not.
Tomatoes are easy.
I will be 6. Okay, and so I can start with small tomatoes, like the ones that are designed to be grown in pots, for example. All right, so I can do that. Now, my question is, if we're going to have a dimming effect where the sun is not as bright,
you're not getting the bandwidths that are necessary for the plant to absorb the light correctly. While you might have white light, you may not have the blue and the greens in there that are necessary for, let's say, leafy production. There's different kinds of bandwidths that are used, predicated on whether you're doing root, fruit, and or leafy production. They're all different. And that is what we would normally call white light because it's in the visible light region. But there are, infrared and ultraviolet on either end. The heat is important. That has to do with tropical. The long ultraviolet is because of plants that are more set for higher altitude. It's all part of understanding more about why you want to do what you do. That's the resolution of information in terms of learning how to grow something. You start simple and you move into graduate level studies. And what I'm going to try to do is summarize some of that so that you can jumpstart your car using a little ether.
Okay, so are you? I'm trying to understand, Rick. Are you saying that these wavelengths that are necessary to grow food are being absorbed so that they?
Well, they were with smoke this year on the West Coast.
That's what I'm saying.
Just terrible. And you can look at the damage that it did to the trees, and the understory, and the insects. And all the rest of the hierarchy of resonance going from one subsystem of life forms to the next.
And we've noticed that. We've noticed that here at the farm. We've reported that.
Well, it's common everywhere. And the problem is the weather is changing, and there's going to be a hiccup where there's going to be a 1 or 2 year problem. If it gets very hot, global warming, you can count on forest fires. What are that smoke going to do? I can tell you what it did here. We didn't have a summer this year.
And we didn't either.
Well, then, you did, but you didn't have as bad a one.
Well, I'm sorry. We didn't have spring. We didn't have spring.
You didn't have the smoke we did. It was terrible here. And when I say that, I'm talking about like where you couldn't stay more than 600 feet. That bad of smoke. Now, what do you think that's going to do to the plant life? What do you think that's going to do to the plant life in Mexico, where your food comes from? It's time for you to take responsibility for growing some of the food you eat. And I think a worthwhile goal this year is to attempt to try to grow a minimum of 40% of the food you're going to consume during the day. That's mostly leafy vegetable. Mm-hmm. Good luck.
Well, yeah, I think good luck is in order, because I'll bet you that less than 1/100th of 1% of us can actually pull off.
The full city of Chattanooga does that now as a citywide project.
Yeah, but I'm talking about those who are paying attention in class today. If we can grow 40% of our food, that would be wonderful. I'm all for it. But I think certainly try it, because it's going to be tough. But success isn't always easy. Dr. Richard Allen Miller's with us, Richard, ALANMiller.com. Mike Ma will be with us tomorrow. So, Rick.
Please give my best to Michael.
Yeah, well, we're trying to have a little get-together with Mike, and I've been totally unsuccessful.
Tell him I love his humor.
Let me ask you this. We're trying to have a little get-together the last Friday in this month, October, in Springfield. And so I've been announcing it for a couple weeks now. And to my absolute embarrassment, not one person has said, "Hey, Vinny, great, I'm looking forward to seeing Mike Ma. I'll be there. Give me some more information." Not one person, not one. Let me say it a different way. Nobody. So, I was thinking, boy, wouldn't it be great to have Rick Miller and Norm Shealy and Mike Ma and John Regan and Rich Scheben, and if she could make it, Guineith Isaacs, a few of us do we won't call it an expo, but a get together where we all explain our knowledge in depth. Okay, I thought wouldn't that be great?
Bring me in on Skype. Bring me in on Skype. I would love to be there, even if I can't afford it.
Well, I'll tell you what. One of our instructors said he wants you to be there so much that he'll put $500 toward your arrival and $500 toward Mike's. And the problem
that's
is
a round trip for me out of Medford. So there it is.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here's the problem. So far, it would be Joey and you and me and Norm, probably John Regan, probably Rich Scheben. I don't know if Guineith could make it.
That's enough for me. We did that around your table one night, and it was one of the most enjoyable moments of my life. So there it is. Doesn't have to be a large group of people. If people want to, I had someone fly all the way in from Chicago, to talk to me. So, whatever. For me, it doesn't have to be a large group of people. If I have a way there, I'd be there in a heartbeat, because I love you guys.
Well, I love you too. And and I was thinking exactly what you were thinking. It was so much fun. We'd have, let's say, 10, 11, 12 of us around the kitchen table, and at least 7 simultaneous conversations going on. And everyone who was involved in all 7 of them, different topics. I mean, it was fast paced. It was, it was a highlight.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're talking about Matt Stein and Ed from
Matt.
Florida.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Well, if there's interest, we'll have it. But, no sense in having it if no one is interested. So, Rick, here's a couple quick thoughts. The far side of the moon. There's a former Air Force sergeant who claimed he saw NASA photographs of an alien base on the far side of the moon, but he died. He just died. He was riding his bicycle, and boom, he gets hit by a truck, and ends up in the hospital and dies. Okay, he claimed he saw secret orbital photos of the moon, the dark side, in the 1960s. Have you heard of anything like that?
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, Edgar Mitchell, my friend. Yeah, all of it. There's no question. There's several things going on. There's a breakaway civilization, one that has technology like that we don't understand yet. Boeing has a magnetic monopole. So imagine what they're doing right now. Then there's, of course, the spurious aliens. Who knows? And then, third, are previous technologies from the Buddhists. Did you know that the Blinky Tepe is Aborigines? And the Aborigines, of New Zealand and Australia, the Aborigines built a tunnel from Scotland all the way down to Turkey as a previous technology. And the Clovis culture that they're now up in southern Mexico, space flight.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned water. And Rick, there's articles on the internet right now talking about water wars. And when I was at the university back in the 70s, one of the professors said, one of the things y'all are going to have problems with in the next 40 years is clean, potable water. And it looks like there will be wars over water, because without it, you're going to die in the future. How close? I don't know. But maybe by 2100.
I'll bet you if you brought me in, I'll bet you you'd have at least 200 people to come out and look at it.
Well, let's try it. Let's try it.